This video will contain great void-sized spoilers about an area from Xenoblade Chronicles 2's late game, as well as story beats that are attached to it. If you want to avoid getting spoiled, then I suggest putting dozens of hours into one of the greatest JRPGs before watching this video. If you have beaten the game or do not care about spoilers, then you've come to the right place. Let's begin. You know what are awesome? Seasons. Besides giving us one of the most underrated Zelda titles, as well as a mechanic that should return to the Pokemon franchise, please Game Freak, I need this in my life again, they each bring something great to the table and feel incredibly distinct. Of course, you have winter, spring, summer, fall, and then spooky season. Yeah, forget about what your elementary school teacher taught you. Did you know there are actually 5 seasons? Once October rolls around, it's almost like a switch flicks on and everybody gets sucked into the Halloween hype cycle. Coming up with a tradition is always a blast too, whether that's watching the absolutely frightening animation that is Scary Godmother Halloween Spooktacular that aired on Cartoon Network practically every day, or just playing an autumn-feeling game to set the mood right before Halloween rolls around. So far this year, I've played a bit of Castlevania, but Luigi's Mansion, Resident Evil 4, and Pokemon Black and White have always been top contenders. The game doesn't necessarily have to be scary, but there's something great about those sections in games that can get you feeling a little uneasy. But you know what else is awesome? Xenoblade Chronicles. So what happens when you combine the desire for a creepy feeling and the amazing series that is Xenoblade? Well, you get the most terrifying, repulsive, ghastly thing the series has ever produced. Juju. Wait, shoot, sorry, wrong script. The answer is really the land of Morytha. Introduced in the later half of Xenoblade Chronicles 2, Morytha is one of the most atmospheric and memorable areas the series has ever graced us with, and it perfectly fits the unsettling description. Taking inspiration from the Latin word mors, which translates to death, Morytha is symbolic of a great tragedy in the Xenoblade series and manifests that linguistic origin through its elements. The thing about Morytha is that it's not meant to embody what might typically be defined as scary. It's less fixated on instilling fear and more about creating an air of uneasiness and mystery. But what makes Morytha so unsettling? With today's video, I wanted to explore the various horror-inspired components of the haunted wasteland that is Morytha to see how they culminate to create a spine-chilling atmosphere in one of Xenoblade Chronicles 2's most standout areas. Welcome to Xenoween. Let's dive into the depths of the Cloud Sea. The player's first-hand exposure to Morytha comes in the beginning of Chapter 8, World Tree. After the birth of Numa and the battle against Jin and Malos, a vicious clash between the artifices shatters the cliffs and leaves the party plummeting through the murky expanse of the Cloud Sea. The cutscene that introduces the new location is spectacular, as it shows the vivid, lively dreamscape of Elysium before slowly transitioning to a dark sky, occasionally lit with flashes of lightning looming above a broken city, enshrouded in a green aura that exudes an apocalyptic vibe. Unlike the chirping of birds and rustling of wind in the grass of Elysium, Morytha is introduced with snaps of thunder, strong gusts of wind, and the sound of waves crashing against the crumpled remains in a strangely calming manner. While the shots of Pyra and Mythra are close and intimate, the initial tracking shot of Morytha is pulled out to show the immense scale that Xenoblade is known for before quickly zooming in on Mythra and Rex. Throughout the chapter, the player will progress through what I define as the 3 main areas. The spacious city streets mixed with the tight corridors of the sky-piercing buildings, the systems of tunnels at the edge of the city, and the remains of the Torn Titan that sank 500 years ago. Each of these areas feel distinct as the main streets are dedicated to giving the player a sense of space and scale. The tunnels feel like something out of the Divine Comedy, where the player travels further down into the dark layers of the Inferno, and the Torn Titan remains take the role of the shocking revelation that awaits at the end. The player will also have to traverse the city in a plethora of manners, like the vertical climbing of the skyscrapers mixed with the winding tunnels of the city's limits. This very traversal keeps the player on their toes, as anticipation is heightened by the area's contrast to everything seen on All Rest and the fear of the unknown. There are even small jump scares littered about, along with your typical creepy features like creaky doors and power generators that need to be turned on for progression. Even Morytha's pickups are thematically on point, with items like blood walnuts, dark sprouts, rubble gems, and abyss metals solidifying the city's history of bloodshed and placement in the dark depths of the Cloud Sea. Some of my favorite features of the area are the silhouettes of large aspids and Lexos gliding high above the city streets that are illuminated with an eerie greenish hue by the flash of lightning, and the otherworldly glow that ironically mimics the color of a sunset as the day draws to a close. I can't quite put my finger on what is so alluring about that peculiar light, but I think it represents what Morytha once was, a place filled with happiness and innocence that was snuffed out and is mainly consumed by the ensuing chaos around it. What's so great about the introduction to Morytha is how the scale only reveals a part of what remains, and the absence of music to set the mood. Until the area's title card comes on screen, the entire cutscene lacks any songs and is purely filled with the atmospheric noises that set the stage for adventure for the abyss that is to come. Due to the events at the cliffs of Morytha, most of the group is separated as well, which enhances that feeling of isolation in conjunction with the focus on ambient noises. When members of the group do reunite, characters that we normally don't see interact get to share some wholesome moments, like Poppy and Mythra, as well as Jin and Bridget. Likely the greatest addition to the party, and catalyst for most of the discussions in Morytha, is Jin. Wounded and weary from the events at the cliffside, Jin's lowered defenses allow for him to open up to the group about his drive for revenge, his connection to the past, and what happened to Laura. Depending on whether you played the base game or Torna first, these scenes really take on a whole new meaning, as it either feels as if Jin isn't the full villain you were led to believe, or that the old Jin is beginning to crack through, respectively. And these sentiments are fully realized in the remains of the Tornan Titan, a cemetery lost to time for what Jin fights for. I think seeing the corpses of his own kind and the Tornan Matrix acts as a catalyst to reignite the fire within him, which paves way for the reveal of Laura's death, and that the leader, ruling an authoritarian regime, was the villain the whole time. This flashback presents raw emotion, and I love how Laura isn't depicted to just accept her fate. She feels crushed at the possibility of being forgotten by those she cares most for, and I think that makes the tension that much more potent.
Jin. The thought of you forgetting me, it's like one heart is being ripped in two.
When Jin performs the technique that will bind them together as a flesh eater is what I consider to be the true turning point and the most pivotal moment for his character. Although Jin lives on with his retained memories, the old Jin had become corrupted and defeated by the loss of his driver at the hands of humanity. Ever since that day he became a flesh eater by his own hands, he was already dead. A blade deprived of the joy and hope that filled him throughout the course of Torna and his time with Laura, Jin has essentially become a lifeless being of his own desire to persist, just like the poor souls that reside in Morytha. There's also just something poetic with the party learning about the blade life cycle in a place that reeks of death. The shattered bones and cracked eggs filled with the carcasses of blades, along with a devastated civilization littered with autonomous monsters, highlights the grim fate that is kept hidden from the world by both Indel and the Architect. Yet Morytha is a beacon of hope as well, since the Cloud Sea slowly disassembles the world before repackaging it in a manner that assists life on the surface. And I believe that for this reason, in addition to the beautifully haunting imagery, is why Morytha is depicted as such a perplexing and complicated area with its amalgamation of new life and death. Furthermore, Morytha is also home to heartfelt character interactions like Mythra's newfound take on life and Bridget's desire to learn about her past, which are heard through the conflicted essence of the music used throughout Chapter 8. The musical choices that accompany these small interactions are spectacular as they really nail the empty nature of Morytha and the seeds of hope sown into the party members. Sea of Clouds especially is one of my more recent favorite songs, and a beautiful piece that conveys bubbling optimism before progressing into a tune that symbolizes a hard-to-swallow realization, which matches Mythra and Poppy's conversation. Morytha's crushed potential is an excellent stage for this conversation about their existence as technological advancements and their fear. Considering the events of Torna and Mythra's character arc, this moment amidst the chaos of Morytha feels like a passing of the torch, and the music helps to characterize their growing relationship. As for Morytha's main theme, it perfectly illustrates the setting and tone of a desolate and isolated world with its slower pace, use of frequent pauses, and great use of strings. The opening sounds have a wispy quality that makes way for some light string pulls, and a droning tone that infiltrates the peaceful melody, almost to symbolize Morytha's peace coming to a halt with its destruction. Not before long, the heavier strings make way for the main, melancholic melody that captures the low point our heroes have hit both literally and figuratively. Oh, and of course you can't have a memorable tune without a vocal accompaniment. Aside from rating pretty high on the K-Jor's weakness scale, I like this theme's decision to only utilize one voice rather than an entire choir, as it aligns well with Morytha's motif of isolation. Give these sections a listen to hear how they represent the respective cues. Back on the subject of the general layout, one of the most prominent elements of this Elrestian graveyard is the base and roots of the world tree that envelop the entire area. The way in which the roots snake through the remnants of a once populous city and connect parts that would otherwise be unreachable is almost symbolic for nature taking back what was once theirs. Emphasized by Morytha's incredibly different atmosphere and placement, it actually draws inspiration from Norse mythology. Xenoblade Chronicles 2 is littered with connections to Norse mythology, such as Odin and Rex sharing some characteristics, Ophion standing in for the World Serpent, and the World Tree for Yggdrasil. Typically at the roots of Yggdrasil lies one of the 9 realms, Helheim, or Hell for short, but only one L. This land of the dead shares features typical of your usual underworld like the grim setting and placement underground. However, one of the most important distinctions between Helheim and something like Hell in Christianity is that the dead who inhabit the realm are not there as a result of wrongdoings or punishment. This actually connects quite well to the last of humanity that survived Klaus's experiment with the Conduit, as plenty of innocents were affected by his foolish deed and left to reside in Morytha before transforming into the area's signature enemies, Goldos. Yeah, close enough. Malformed and abhorrent, Goldos are monstrosities that appear in many different incarnations throughout the expanse of Morytha. Similar to chimeras with their design implementing features of various creatures, Goldos have a color scheme consisting of blue and gray tints, with an asymmetrical nature that encapsulates their design. Core crystal shards jut out randomly from their body. They usually have 3 lopsided eyes, and some features like their arms and legs vary in size and shape. This level of disproportion is extremely creepy and adds to their unnatural presence. Adding even more to their scare factor is the red coloring some Goldos have on their body, as if they are coated in the blood of some poor soul. As for their idle position, they are usually on their knees and gazing straight up into the dark clouds with their mouth moving in an erratic fashion, as if they are gasping for air. I like to think that this pose is one of both veneration and defeat, as they stare into the heavens wondering why they have been forsaken by whatever god is watching. Although their life in a land long forgotten by the world is the fault of Klaus, their own curiosity is to blame for their transformation into Goldos. Klaus details how those who clung to life use core crystals, objects originally planned to replace human brain cells to achieve immortality. Despite surviving for millennia and achieving a healing factor similar to the Blades, they were ultimately converted into the abominations the party encounters, and left to rot in the pits of hell in a zombie-like state. The Goldos' location being similar to that of an underworld is actually referenced frequently in their variations, with gruesome names like Infernal, Deadfire, and Darkblood Goldos. And of course, my favorite Goldo throughout the entirety of Morytha, Soul Eater Stanley. What the hell is that name? But according to Bridget, these creatures can only be defeated by burning their corpses or destroying the core crystal. Zombies that can only be truly destroyed by burning them, and there's an outbreak in a city? It looks like Xenoblade Chronicles took a page out of the Resident Evil's book on this one. They also offer a stark contrast to those the player has encountered thus far across the Titans of Alrest, but they are focused on much less. The purpose of the Scouts and Sovereigns is mainly to ease the player into the onslaught of technologically themed enemies in the World Tree and further showcase the hubris of mankind with their rusted and aged appearance. Back on the subject of Helheim, the realm was ruled by a goddess aptly named Hel. While Morytha doesn't exactly have a specific god attached to it, Galea, the woman who was with Klaus when his experiment led to the birth of a new universe, is revealed to be the main boss of the chapter found in the remains of the Torn Titan, Infernal Goldo. It might be a stretch, but she could be interpreted as a very vague reference to the Norse deity. While Morytha is constructed as a land of utter mystery, there's one thing in particular that has me at night endlessly tossing and turning, lost in thought and anguish. If you walk down highway number 8, you'll notice there's a heavily damaged green sign hanging above. There's text that's pretty standard for your ordinary highway sign, but then there's this little symbol that looks identical to your average interstate marker, accompanied by the number 90. What's even more perplexing is that we know that the planet Klaus destroyed was Earth, and that the remains of the world are what lies underneath the Cloud Sea. So we can conclude that what the denizens of Alrest known as Morytha was a large metropolis found on Earth, which means that this might be the actual Interstate 90 found here in the United States?
What?
Well, geez, that, hits really close to home. Forget the zombie-like enemies in eerie setting, that's the scary shit right there. When I first encountered Morytha in the early hours of the morning, I was stunned, and can only marvel at what I saw as I took in everything. Its haunting yet enticing atmosphere is something I don't see expressed so beautifully in games. This blend of feelings in combination with the setting reminds me strongly of Kingdom Hearts 2's Dark Margin, but Morytha still manages to be insanely unique. Aside from a couple light jump scares, it's not meant to be scary in a way that induces goosebumps, but rather a plane that engulfs the player with feelings of anxiousness and uneasiness. From the enemies to the color palette and somber music, Morytha culminates into one of the most extraordinary areas the series has to offer, and the perfect way to get under my skin just in time for Halloween. A blade deprived of the joy and hope that filled him throughout the course of Torna and his time with Lorna. Lorna. What is Lorna from? Why does that sound so familiar? I have no idea. Leave a comment down below if you remember what Lorna is from. I'm probably gonna remember it before this video is out, but in case I don't. Furthermore, Mithra is awesome. The script is gonna be the death of me. Just Mithra and Morytha right next to each other is just a blend for disaster. Well, hello there. That's my really bad Obi-Wan impression, but how's it going, everybody? Thank you for watching this video and making it to the end. I really hope you enjoyed, and if you did and wanted to leave a like or subscribe to the channel, then I would greatly appreciate it. 1,000 subscribers is just in sight. We are in the end game now, and that's all thanks to you guys just supporting the channel and watching the content. I'm sorry that this video is coming a little later than the usual Sunday. The process leading up to this video was quite difficult. I had a lot of other things going on with school and stuff, but I figured, just pushing it back a tiny bit wouldn't be too bad because it can align a tiny bit better with Halloween. I hope you guys really have something fun planned for Halloween, whether that's one of those traditions I mentioned earlier, like playing a game, or just hanging out with friends and just having a good time. I know for me, I'm probably going to wear my cloud costume that I made a couple years ago. I really like that costume, and any excuse to wear a sleeveless purple turtleneck, because you don't normally get to do that, that's good in my book. I have also been thinking about potentially turning this into another kind of side series like Dramatis Personae, where I take a look at different locations in the Xenoblade games and analyze them for different aspects about how they come together. Let me know down in the comments if that's something you'd like to see more of, and if so, I might actually try and come up with a name. But if you do have any also name suggestions, I'm willing to take those as well. That's really about it for what I have to say, so as always, thank you guys so much, and until next time.